Welcome back to some new Malicious Compliance stories, where people complied to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called 3 Minutes. I worked for a water company for 25 years and was one of the most productive repair crews. That is, until the new manager, let's call him Mr. Numbnuts, started. We had a monthly rota where you were on call for 1 week in 4 for emergency repairs out of hours. On the day in question, I started work at 7:30 AM on a Friday and finished work at 3:15 AM Saturday morning, so a pretty long shift. I get to work Tuesday morning and get called into the office by Mr. Numbnuts. He informed me that according to my vehicle tracker, I'd left the yard at 3:12 AM and not 3:15 AM, which is an attempt to defraud the company. As you can imagine, I was absolutely fuming. I told him that at the time I was covered in mud and sweat and just wanted to get home after completing a monster shift for the company. He said he was making me aware that I could be fired for it. I said that if we are going to be this petty, you can take me off the emergency contact list for extra coverage. And I won't be starting 20 minutes early each day either. I'll now be clocking in at exactly 7:30 AM and I shall be heading out at exactly 5:30 PM. No deviation whatsoever. You can explain to your bosses why productivity is down and you are struggling to get coverage for emergencies. We'll then see how important your 3 minutes are when they are costing the company money. Little did I realize at the time, but the guy's job was bonus related and linked to our productivity, which tanked after that because all the other gangs followed my lead, except for the brown-nosed gangs obviously. 3 weeks go by with an absolute show in customer service complaints about their work not being carried out in a timely manner. My productivity dropped from 7 jobs per day down to 4, and Mr. Numbnuts gets called in by his bosses to try and explain what is going on. He tried to spin some story that I turned all the guys against him for no reason, and that this was the result. Little did he know that I'd actually trained his boss when he first started with the company 15 years before, and wanted to come out and find out what we do, and experience how hard the job is. He surprised me by working a full month on the repair crews before going back to the office. The boss called me in to find out what was really going on, so I explained how he'd used the tracker to monitor what time I'd left the yard, and that I'd guesstimated my finish time and overestimated by 3 minutes, because I was absolutely knackered after working a shift from hell on call. In conclusion, the manager was let go for misuse of the tracking system, as it's only supposed to be used for emergencies and not monitoring, and we had our on-call system reviewed to cut the hours we were having to work. The next story is called Costume Day. Decades ago, I taught in a mediocre for-profit international school, where teachers were treated like junk. It was weird and toxic. I knew I was in trouble on the first day, when someone pointed to our plastered over door and said that they all made jokes that the wall was where all the teachers disappeared to who got fired in the middle of the year. I got really tired of the bizarre infantilization and micromanagement. They did things like convoke the entire faculty on Saturday morning from 9 to 12 for a special training seminar, and then refused to let us go home when it was finished at 10:30 because we had agreed to stay until 12, telling us to go sit at our desk and do some work. I hated this place. We were told one day that all of the students and staff were to wear our national costumes, being American, being fundamentally averse to pilgrims, and situationally averse by that point to making any extra effort in that demoralizing job. I wore a big baggy t-shirt, a baseball cap, old blue jeans and trainers. I was a study in absolute schlubbiness. My national costume was at the same time unassailable and in complete violation of the dress code. When I ran into the 2 members of the administration responsible for the reign of terror under which we were all toiled, they had faces of thunder and couldn't say a single word. The third story is called Refuse to Cook. I'm a female and I dislike cooking. Don't get me wrong, I cook for survival, but it is not something I like or enjoy. At my in-laws, both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are stay-at-home partners and love to cook. Neither of their husbands lifts a finger to help, and they like it that way. Before marriage, I was treated as a guest, but since my marriage 6 months ago, they expect, want, and demand I cook with them. For the first few times I went along with it, but I hated it. It took 5 to 7 hours to make food and do dishes. So when they planned a get-together last weekend and discussed the menu, I suggested ordering in. This way everyone can be more relaxed. They looked like I insulted them. I told them they could cook, but to give me a list of what I should make, as I will buy it. They said that's not how traditions work, and if I hate it so much, I can relax with the man. So that's exactly what I did, much to their anger. I helped set up the place and serve, but that was it. As we were eating, my husband commented about how good something tasted. Mother-in-law immediately went on about how I wouldn't be cooking anything for him. When he said that he can cook for himself, sister-in-law chimed in with how her husband or dad never had to cook a day in their life. How marrying lazy women like me has ruined his manhood. I looked at my husband and we both laughed. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law are blasting our phones over my arrogance and calling him spineless. Even my mom is taking their side now. Guess who doesn't care? The last story is called Queue Jumpers. I work in IT as a service desk engineer. We have a limited time window where we can get our food and eat during lunch, 12 to 13. It's always pretty busy in the cafeteria, so we plan it accordingly. Other co-workers don't have this time constraint. Everyone starts their lunch around 12, so that's our time to avoid. We wait until 12:30 in the hopes that we have a smaller queue to order. On this day, this was not the case. It was a longer queue, and it took a while for the kitchen staff to get all orders out. I was waiting in line, as you should, and a few people walked in and saw someone near the front of the line that they wanted to talk to. Fine by me, as long as you take your place in the queue once you are done. But they did not. They kept talking to each other and queued along. They ordered, got their food and left. When it was my turn, I only had 10 minutes left to wait for my meal and get back to my desk. I was eventually forced to eat at my desk, even though it's not allowed, and serve co-workers during my lunch. It's the end of the summer holiday, so it's pretty busy. A while later, we received a ticket from one of the queue jumpers. Of course, they changed their prio to urgent, although it was far from urgent from our point of view. We decided to put them on hold until the end of the day, at least, and continue to work on other tickets, less urgent and more urgent. It's maybe a very small victory, but since people want us to call on their every whim, it's fun to actually block someone once in a while. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.